Yes.
And
Eivind, he's in Trondheim.
Trondheim, yeah.
Katrine, she's in Oslo, so she works with So Central, which is an NGO working to promote social entrepreneurship and collaboration between social entrepreneurs in the public sector in Norway.
Okay. Det är roligt att träffas.
Yeah. So we are recording this, so we will have the footage after the conversation, because the sound will be better on the recording than it will be in this space. We're not going to spend an awful long time on this, because, like I said, people are paying like $100,000 per square meter per hour for the space viewing. It's crazy.
Welcome to Davos.
So they'll probably be moving us shortly anyway. So this is Accra calling from outside. She's probably wondering where we are.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Just a minute away. Which is good. Amazing. Technology has changed so much. I used to have to hardwire telephones to transmit stuff down the line. Literally had a kit with clips. Unscrew the cap on the. It was called a Road Warrior kit. As a journalist with CNN, and you'd have to unplug the phone to be able to send data through the phone line. And I had to reprogram the computer. I mean, I'm not a computer programmer, but I had to learn this. So it's whether it's pulse dial or tone dial, and interesting days. Now it's just on our hands. Oh, the light. Yeah, we're just using it for light at the moment, so. But if you need to move it, you can. But I'll just put it closer to us just to keep us kind of light free.
You can join us if you want, Hilda. So we have everyone online.
Why don't you come in the middle and I think you'll have better lighting on you. I'm the one with the halo. As Rihanna told me, I can see your halo.
So while we are waiting, how has media shifted over the years you have been in all this?
How long have we gone? So when I started at the BBC, I was in radio, in local radio in the mid-80s. And we used to physically cut magnetic tape with razor blades, and the block and stick it together. And the block on which we used to cut had two angles to allow different grades of fading in and out. Hi, come in. Is we all together? Yeah. Then we'll need to move this back a little bit. And as we've gone from physical media to digital media, film to flash drives, and even in cameras, of course, photographic film too. So the technology has changed like beyond belief in almost no time.
Yeah.
The resolution on my iPhone is 1,000,000 times better than the cameras we used to use at the BBC professionally and paid 1,000,000 times more for. I mean, it's crazy. So it's democratized.
Okay, we'll do this very quickly before the room gets any more crazy than it is. The basic idea is, how do we mobilize resources in a community? And how do we do this in ways that are democratic? So are you hearing me now, even in the US?
Yeah, Billy, you're coming in and out of the sound.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. The context, so I'm just sharing it anyway. So part of the stuff we're trying to do is redesign the operating system or the core operation of cities. So specifically from the US perspective, how do we incorporate democratic innovations into the budgeting systems of large cities like Trondheim? That is specifically what Ariel is doing with researchers in the US. Using the likes of citizens' juries to design criteria and interesting topics for development that deeply involves local communities. We're working with So Central, which is a Norwegian NGO, trying to then design the process, the innovation process, if you like, making sure that once we start listening in for social entrepreneurs, they can be easily linked to resources, to policy innovation, and even to a workflow where it makes it more likely for them to succeed in their communities. And finally, and this is where Eivind comes in, when you've done the listening, the linking, it's all about the learning. So how do we transform this into action, experimentation that is not just knowledge-based, but even knowledge-creating? So maybe, Are, can you just share a few words about the work you're doing and how you're connecting this to match funding in particular?
Okay, so I can say a little bit about the democratic innovation. I was hearing you a little bit bad, but I think I got roughly what you were saying. What I do is doing research in deliberative democracy, and I look on how we can design institutions and design ways that we can include people better in decision making. And what we see now is that there is a wave of this internationally, and this is why I'm in the United States. There is a lot going on very on state level, and also it has been incredibly international. You probably know a little bit about the discussion with Brexit, which they are thinking about having a citizens' assembly now, which is similar to what they did in Ireland, which is a deliberative process. And a deliberative process is, the idea behind it is that you include people, but you don't just include them. You have to set up a framework where people are allowed to really become experts on an area before they actually decide something. So instead of having just a referendum, random sampling of people. For example, in Ireland, they took 100 random selected people from all over Ireland, gave them space, and they gave them time to discuss and reflect on issues. For example, in Ireland, it was the abortion law, it was about climate change, for example. And in the end of that process, they come up with a report that they give to politicians. Or in Ireland, it was actually a decision, and give them their view of this specific topic. And what I'm doing then with Trondheim and the match funding here is that we want to have random selected people so that they can sit down and have the opportunity to reflect on everything here, so they can make a decision that will be better for the community as a whole. And by doing this, it will give this process a legitimacy that it won't have if you don't have that process. So that's roughly the idea.
Yeah, so let me bring in Eivind at this point. So basically what we're doing, we're taking part of the public funds, and we're figuring out how can we use these funds to amplify local action, local knowledge, local initiative, connecting the city overall budgeting and resource allocation process to social entrepreneurship as an integral part of the city's planning system. Is this right, Eivind? Can you hear me?
Kinda. What you were saying?
I was saying how we're taking part of the cities or the public funds and using these to amplify initiatives before we start bringing in experts, new technologies. So creating the platform for initiatives as an open platform where we use public resources and match these to entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, initiatives, and available technologies.
And I had a great conversation with your CFO in Trondheim, who is very eager to learn how we can use this in order especially to support your guys in the companies, because there are now new ways of doing that. On one hand, respecting the needs the finance sector always has to follow, but at the same time freeing 10% of the funds to be able to come up with seed money.
And what is really interesting, let me bring you in, because you're kind of bringing this to the next level with the importance of how you basically involve people in creating narratives.
So one of the things is that for me, I'm basically a journalist, and I've seen the media change dramatically in all these years, and I want to see a change that's in the right direction, which it hasn't been up to now. It's been going in the wrong direction, with control of the media, control of the message, basically arguments back and forth, political arguments, and no one's really getting proper information. And part of it comes through the ownership of the media. It's either government owned and they have an agenda, or it's owned by big business and their agenda is simply to make money. So one of the ideas I have is to have essentially a citizen-owned media through crowd-funded shares in a channel at a global level, where the channel is essentially not owned by any individual. No one can have more than, say, 100 shares at $10 each, which dilutes the ownership enough to make it democratic. And the other thing is that it would be much more global, because people are not stuck with a country's agenda, for example, in terms of their news reporting. They can actually report on a variety of things. So that's one idea, and I think that could really take off. It's just we need the mechanism now to get that in place. And I think this is the way to democratize the media. On top of that, I believe the news content, it wouldn't be just solely 24-hour news. There'd be more programming on developmental issues and stories the mainstream channels never cover, including things like the SDGs, because of course, they don't even like stories from the UN half the time because they don't understand them. It gives us a bigger platform for developmental work stories, and the news would be an aggregate. So instead of having a huge news gathering structure, which is very expensive, and sticking more reporters into the already big mix, we would actually start off our news really looking at what the other channels are saying. So an incident has happened in Libya, this is what CNN says, this is what BBC says, this is what Libyan TV says, and it would actually essentially aggregate content to give people a choice and more variety in what they hear.
And as Riz and I are brothers in mind for more than 30 years, I'm as well a journalist, what we bring to the cities is that we have 3 hours of program in the mornings maybe, done by the children in the schools, because we would love to share with you what makes a good journalist. Not everybody who can hold a pen is a journalist, but you have access to the cool stories, so let us help you become a journalist and share this on your own TV station. Proper training. And the same you do with the senior citizens in your pension homes. They are as well good source of know-how. They are a good source of news in the true valuable way of what is new, and that will give the juice to these TV channels. So you have 3 hours by children, 3 hours by senior citizens, the rest Riz and I take care by good journalists from all over the world.
And these channels could be played in the schools in the morning.
That's the point.
So, and actually, so I like the idea of having the energy of youth and the experience of age, and the show could even be called Energy and Experience. It combines the two.
I want to also share one example where citizens have come together by how an individual can team up to make a difference. So what they've done is everybody comes together, selects an agenda, then they start contributing to it. Right. Now the way they're contributing here is that they have some cards, maybe an SDG card, which a bank gives to you, and for the moment you spend on the card, the bank gives some money to the SDG as part of the incentives, right? So the community has come together, they've all got 80,000 cards, not for SDG, but it was for wildlife that time. So 1 lakh of them were using the wildlife card for making purchases, and the bank was in turn giving money for the cause.
So this would be like SDG miles instead of an air miles.
Could be, yeah.
And to scale this up, let me bring in Jean-Christophe, as he's our man, if you want, who moved already years away from negative screening, which is the term in the finance world, to concrete SDG impact finance. And Jean-Christophe.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Indeed, as Roland just said, it's very important today that the key is funding. We all know it, but we have been these last years too much linked to institutional businesses such as World Bank or institutional big, and all of us can help. And I'm trying to bring around to create the bridge between all single citizens with not billions, not even millions, that can fund projects. If we put things together with big institutions, HSBC, Barclays, UBS, Credit Suisse, we have tools today in order to fund projects together with the big institutions, but as private persons or as small corporations. And the tools exist. I'm working with 5 big institutions on this. And what we have still been missing is the capacity for the big ones to understand that the small ones, here all of us around the table, can do the same, if not better, because we are less regulated and have less procedures to follow. But we have funds and projects which are down to earth and can help everybody in the community.
Let me bring in one more voice, because you're basically addressing, on the one hand, a very big picture, and Bartora is trying to connect the flow of small places and individuals to the groups, to the cities, to this overall flow of people and resources. So maybe you could chip in with a few reflections of your own on how we begin to integrate these flows of people and initiatives.
Yeah, I think what we do exactly now is try to bring in some of the new flows, because a lot of these new communities, they emerge around the digital technologies and the hubs around the world. So there are literally thousands of new co-working spaces using mobile technology, as simple as that. The new crowdfunding, they have the not maybe all of them have the competence, but it's an emergent field in crowd economy that is exploding. And crowdfunding, just crowdfunding, the single field of crowdfunding is more than 1,000 crowdfunding platforms today.
Yeah.
And it's bigger than the venture capital in early stage, 200% rise a year. So it's important to understand that we have a new economy that is coming together with, you say, the traditional arena, and find out spaces where you connect these hubs. And so we can connect with institutions like you are the link to. And that's what we try to do.
And as it is important that we have as well the millennials with us, I have our main millennial, Al. He used to be the president of NASDAQ. So he knows from where it came and where it is today. And Al, if you can share with them what you experienced in your journey and why you love to work with Jean-Christophe and all these groups and the citizens in the cities.
I would be delighted to. I think we're in one of the moments in time where a great experiment is available for humanity. There have been do-good efforts unrealized for decades. The game has changed because never in history has there been a community of interest like the internet. Never have more than 2 billion people been available to talk to each other instantaneously at zero marginal cost. We still have not figured out what this means, but the fact that the SDGs and the UN initiatives seems to be gathering legs, seems to be gathering support from many, many different quarters, means there's the possibility here to do something really significant. Basically, the UN has asked us to up our game. Basically, they've asked us to do a better job of the mundane things of life. And we've got an opportunity to do that. The role that we're excited about at Princeton Capital is proving the fundamental question: can you make as much money investing in companies that are doing the right thing as you can make investing in any company? And we think the answer is yes. We're beginning to get some good results along those lines, and it's a wonderful challenge to undertake.
So we're beginning to see the emergence of a patchwork of different sectors coming together. Democratic innovations. I'm sorry you can't hear me. I think it would be cool to end maybe on a more funny note, because this is also about making playgrounds in the truest sense of the word, making it about something that's concrete, that connects to people. And nothing connects to people like rhinos and underwear, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's a crazy idea I had about 9 years ago while I was in the midst of launching and running Al Jazeera English, the channel. I'd been drawing a horn shape while listening at a conference. I've been doodling and drawing since I was a kid. I kept drawing this horn. I thought it'd be funny to have horny underwear. Then I could tell people I have horny underwear. And I spelled it H-O-R-N-I with a small h. Because I didn't want it to be kind of crude or anything like that. So, and I thought if I have horny underwear, it should have a mission. Everything I do generally has a mission. In this case, it looked like a rhino horn, so I thought I could actually donate the profits to help save rhinos, which already are in big trouble, as you know. And it turns out, serendipitously, that the way I wrote H-O-R-N-I for horny is an anagram of rhino, R-H-I-N-O. So it all fit together with divine providence, and I've launched Horny Underwear. And we donate profits to help save rhinos. Super high quality, all ethically made, because I always say it's pointless saving rhinos if you exploit people or the planet. And so people can now sit in comfort in Horny Underwear and know that they're doing good with their underwear.
And everybody who buys more than 10 will see Riz ride a rhino.
Yes, possibly. I just hope I face the right way. I hope I face the right way.
Okay, so I'm sorry about the quality of the sound in Oslo. I hope you were able to at least hear something of the stuff being shared. I think we got the sort of broader picture of how we're connecting social entrepreneurship to the operating system of cities, to democratic innovation, and to the broader picture of the flows of capital and people around the world. With a twist at the end, with the Horny Underwear story, connecting this all back to the rhinos. Thanks, guys, for your time. And,
Thanks, everyone.
Let's talk.
Good luck with the work.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
I just have an idea. What if we encourage people when they spend something which is SDG compliant, like goods or something, we give them SDG miles, and those some companies can sponsor those miles.
That would be.
Why not? That'd be fantastic.
Everybody has so many cards today in his pockets and
That is the
grabbing
SDG
miles and
debit
having.
card.
This is it. This would work because it's a.
That's what we bring. And I was yesterday with the chairman of MasterCard. 3 minutes, 10 minutes later, I had his team. When can we meet?
So let's do that, because I've lost such credit cards in my past career, where I've dealt with such combinations of how to
Exactly.
get SDG miles. So people, if they make a choice of a product which is better, they get SDG miles.
That's the point.
And then the SDG miles can be sponsored by companies for money or gifts or travel or whatever.
Well, Horny Underwear.
Only underwear.
Compliant goods.
It's his. He
know
did it.
the
It's
chief of the anti-poaching team in Namibia.
Of the rhinos. I want to talk to these kind of people for my various projects, my broadcasting. I want to do a podcast series now. The idea is to talk to people like that. It should be great. Yeah, please give me a raise.
Yes, of course.
Please do. That's how networking works.
Be careful what you say.
I know.
No, it's very
Nothing is
important.
ever off the record.
We will go this. So these are really farmers.
Yeah, a bit dynamic.
It's an interesting conversation and trying to combine people that have very, very different perspectives on how you create a better world. I think it's always about trying to translate these into narratives and practices that are mutually beneficial. So I think you can see in a space like Davos how this is playing itself out, and the SDGs are turning out to be a very interesting object around which these conversations can increasingly be structured to establish at least some starting ground for this conversation to happen.
We will be back a bit later from Davos and Valence here, where we have our small base camp there. So it's quite interesting to see how this network of very diverse people and plans emerge.